necessity is the father of invention. Meaning if there is no need, there is no invention. I don't know if you're following this.
Yeah.
A typical African does not have a need to invent, does not have a need to go outside of his comfort zone because everything he needs is readily available. You get this, okay? And this is how the white man met us. Because I said some of the things you postulated, you proposed, you said about Lord Lugard and some other white guys and how they documented the history of the African. I oppose it 100%. The reason is this. They spoke from their own conquest mindset. They came to conquer and they saw the people they wanted to conquer as, look at these ants. That is from where they wrote the story. And the idea is a typical African does not intend to conquer, at least not outside of his own enclave. If an African wants to conquer the next tribe, it is just to prove superiority, nothing else. Wants to prove a point. And most times now, woman or now something ain't go cause the war.
Yeah.
Not any other thing. Do you get? So a typical African is just contented, not lesser in his mind, but just contented enough to not want to explore and violate some other man. A typical white man would readily violate you for his own pecuniary gains. So when you say that the white man knows when to stop evil, oh no, I disagree 100%. In fact, documented history has it that a typical white man on the path of evil does not know when to stop. Until evil consumes that man, he does not stop.
Mr. Wakuche, you also said, like what he's saying, when you talked about the judge ruling and the judges ruling and all of that.
Of the panel.
Good. Remember King Leopold of Belgium that killed a lot of people in Congo? Now, your theory about the white man not knowing when to stop, that is a very perfect example that begs to differ.
Yes.
So do not, or let me just say, we should not just say the white man knows when to stop evil. Because
a typical white man does not.
There are 1,001 white men that would glory and gloat in doing evil.
Sure.
Even till date.
I'll go back to King Leopold. Was there any war that made the Belgians hand over power to the Congolese? There was no war. They knew obviously that their policy or strategy wasn't going to work, wasn't sustainable. They handed over power to the Belgians. And under 2 years, Congo went into what? Civil war. Lumumba, Kasavubu, and Co.
But it was essentially orchestrated. Both the handover and the civil war were orchestrated.
Yes, but I'll tell you something. Achebe said, it is he who brings in the ant-infested firewood that indirectly invites the lizard. Back to Lord Lugard and what they documented. I'm not saying this as an ethnic supremacy or anything. The first place he conquered was northern Nigeria. And what he found on the ground was the Fulani Emirate system. And he said, and I quote, that the ruling Fulani elite could not differentiate between their personal pocket and public treasury. Back to modern Nigeria, the highest form of corruption we always have in Nigeria is when the northerners rule. It's a fact. Buttresses and confirms what Lord Lugard said about them. Look at the kind of what we're hearing about the so-called Mr. Integrity, Buhari's government today. The white man is not a perfect being.
Mr. Wakuche, what of Lumumba? What of Lumumba?
Lumumba, I'll tell you what Lumumba, who Lumumba is. Was a man who couldn't make peace, and was a man who showed his weakness to the white man that he just a, I'm sorry to say it, bloody black man. When the problem started in the Congo, the State Department invited the warring parties on how the road to peace, how to share power. They had a very intellectual, meaningful meeting, and after the meeting, he called the State Department people that he would like to sleep with a blonde woman.
Now, as atrocious as that might sound,
I will bring the book next week.
Just a minute. As atrocious as that might sound, hold on. So Lumumba asked to sleep with
He
a
would like to sleep with a blonde woman. And
yes.
it's not for him.
Hold on. Now, the white man reports that as acrimonious and atrocious. But if a white man comes to Nigeria on a visit and insists he wants to sleep with the roundest bottomed woman,
he will do it privately.
we would allow him
It will not be as part of
and
the
we will
official job.
celebrate him for doing it. So the same way, they